we're going to talk a little bit about the protests that have been happening, that have been kind of headed by this guy, Andrew Cooper Ryder, libertarian, opportunist, spreader of misinformation, versus Chuck Eddy, former Republican, a honorary kernel of truth, because I feel like he works really hard to spread the truth about things like COVID. Whereas Brewed, which is the coffee shop that Andrew Cooper Ryder owns, has really leaned into just garbage, in terms of this pandemic and being highly irresponsible. And we're going to talk to Nate a little bit about this, because there was a protest against the government, Governor Beshear's quote unquote lockdown, which was it last weekend before? It was recent.
May 2nd, I think it was, two Sundays ago. Yep.
So that was happening in Frankfurt. Chuck Eddy kind of raised the call, encouraged people to come out to counter protest. Folks might have seen on Facebook, there were videos about it. There was a kind of confrontation. The photos I really liked about the counter protest were just some nice folks hanging out with Governor Beshear and Brittany Beshear and whatever the dog's name. Anyone knows what's the dog's name? Anyone know?
God. I'm a bad Frankfortian. I should know that.
You should know that. I think your dog's played with their dog, right?
I think they named him Cameron.
Okay. I don't think that's true. But yeah. So what I love is Andy Beshear came out hey, you guys are protesting, or you're counter protesting in favor of me doing the right thing. That's great. Let me come meet you. I love those photos. There were some more kind of confrontation focused videos and photos, and I don't know, tell me a little bit about what went down, Nate.
Yeah, so Kit and I answered Chuck's call and joined a group of about, I think, 12 of us standing in front of the gate of the governor's mansion, and across the street there was the protesters, about 50, maybe up to 80 at one point. I don't think they ever exceeded 100 people, but not a bad group, not a bad size for a group. And they were all very wing nutty, and they all had posters about "Don't tread on me," and I think there was even a ironic "My body, my choice," right? And anti-vax stuff, and a lot of stuff about freedom and liberty, some American flags, and at least a couple of folks just openly carrying firearms, which is not illegal in Kentucky, but in the context of a political protest, I think is sort of an act of intimidation. But so they were not terribly well organized. I will say that our side, there was a little bit of disorganization on our part too, just by which I mean there were a couple of folks who sort of were, taunting and maybe not as respectful as they could have been. I actually, copped it at the very end after everything was over. I had a couple of words with Cooper Ryder. So I'm not innocent in all this completely, but I think the point is that at one point, they had this dweeby looking guy dweeby looking white guy in a blazer with one of those cameras on a stick, and he comes in, he's basically in all of our faces trying to get us to do something. And a woman who was near me had a knife on her, and actually pulled it out. She was getting a little wigged out because this guy was getting up in her grill, and you just don't do that to people. Unfortunately, that got caught on tape. So now they're able to use that snippet of her standing with a knife at her side, and sort of play into this whole, oh, see, they're the violent ones. They think that they're all, tolerant, this, that, and the other. So it's not a great moment for those of us who are trying to make the point of sort of peacefully, supporting our governor and supporting truth and epistemology as realized by science. But I think, there's a few points that need to be made. So one is did we have to be there, right? One option would have been, let these yahoos do their thing and, just whatever, pat themselves on the back and shout at the governor, and then they all go home, and that's one option. Another option is, of course, is that you show up, but instead you don't really engage the way they want you to, not in a kind of taunting, way. You're not going to convince them. I talked with Kit about this earlier. Of course, Kit, my spouse, is I think has some good organizing chops and some experience doing protests and actions. And as they say, they mentioned this talk that Heather Cox Richardson, the great historian, gave on Facebook Live just a few months ago. And Dr. Richardson made the point that there's no reasoning with people who are so invested in the big lie or in denying COVID or anything like that, or so sure that our governor is somehow curtailing their freedoms. Indeed, if you act intolerant to them, you're just giving them talking points. You're not going to change their minds. So what Dr. Richardson says is, instead, we have to live by example and show them the way that we want them to be too. So to that point, what Kit told me was that instead of yelling at them, let's show them our joy and our beliefs. Engage them on our grounds. There's that word again, Ken. Our grounds, not their grounds. And if Kit had organized the counter protest, we might have had something more like a party across the street with coffee and donuts, and we could have invited them to come over and share with us, and really show them that we're the good guys, and we act good and we have fun. And so that's my little spiel about that. And I think that it's Cooper Ryder. The less we say about him, the better, because I feel like he just lives for attention, and he just wants to be sort of talked about and blah blah blah. And he'll probably run for governor, and I don't think he's organized enough to be that big a threat. But he's just this ambitious guy who's very self-absorbed. So let this be the last time his name ever leaves in my mouth. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing those perspectives, and for coming out. I think the intention was pure, right? Like, we want to stand up for our governor. He's standing up for us. He's every day taking the slings and arrows to keep us safe. So why wouldn't we show up when people want to come after him? But I think that idea of, like, why give them more oxygen? Why give them what they want, which is attention? When what we should be doing is just following the guidelines and trying to be safe. And which I don't know if anyone had noticed, the guidelines have been relaxed a significant amount. Like, I'm not quite sure what they're protesting anymore. Right? Like, give me a break. At this point, they're like, they want to make sure that people don't wear a mask outside because that's child abuse. Like, what in the world? Like, if somebody wants to wear a mask outside, how is that hurting you? Like, do what you're going to do. Enjoy yourself. But yeah, Cooper Ryder, I'll say his name a few more times. Nate, you're off the hook, but I might say his name a few more times. I desperately hope that he runs for governor, because he's not going to get the nomination. And I'm sure he's just such a, rugged individualist independent. They don't even need the Republican Party nomination. He'll just run, and he'll, because he's a yammering jackass, he'll get some votes, maybe enough to to make Andy's reelection easier, because he'll be splitting the right-wing nut job ticket. I say more power to you, Mr. Cooper Ryder. Although I am very interested to find out if he has paid his debt to our state for his ill-advised effort to impeach Andy Beshear for things that courts had already ruled on. Clearly Cooper Ryder is a coffee shop owner and not an attorney, because his understanding of the law is questionable at best. All right. So one thing I did want to underscore, though, that whole idea of brandishing weapons, like, yeah, it's like, oh my God, the tolerant left had a knife because I was in their face. Like, but I'll be honest, a knife is a lot less intimidating than your AK-47 or your whatever Glock on your hip. Like, the only way a knife works is if you get up in my face, right? If you want to not be knifed, it's very easy to avoid being knifed, which is not be in my personal space. Whereas bullets, not quite so much. And open carry seems to be, a problem. There's a May Day confrontation between patrons at Le Chasse. I don't even know what that is. Protesters there. We had, police arresting 5 protesters from the group of, armed Kentucky Derby protesters. There's actually been a trial date set for Mark and Patricia McCloskey. If you remember those fine folks, the folks who brandished their weapons at Black Lives Matter protesters who dared to march down the middle of their street from their rich white people enclave. Like, there are protesters in the street. I need to get out my guns. And they were turned into heroes by the right wing, right? Weren't they at like the Republican convention or some garbage like that? Good God, we have to exalt them because they are scared white people, and that's our base. We must build up the scared white people. So yeah, it's really some unfortunate stuff that's going on. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, like people think we're going to get into some sort of like civil war. And I think a lot of people on the right want that to happen, or they want to inspire that belief to just rally up their base. Truly pathetic stuff. But I know Ken has a few thoughts he wants to share about, what went down with Brewed and how Cooper Ryder has kind of managed this situation to encourage people to, support his crappy coffee shop.
I do. I really do. I feel like I've been talking about a ground a lot. This is our coffee episode.
Grounds. Get it? See what he did there, people? Good stuff. Come for the politics, stay for the clever puns.
So what I did here, I blurred all this stuff out. I don't have the heart to play it for a couple of reasons. What about Brewed using the protesters' images to sell their coffee? The video is clearly a commercial for their business. It has their logo. It is advertising on their business page. The protest is a public protest. Anyone can go to this protest. That's fine. And you can share the images you take, and you can do whatever you want to do with these images as an individual. That's your freedom. But the problem is using these images for a commercial without the consent of the people in the video to profit off their image and to profit without their consent is a personal property violation. It's a capitalist violation that is kind of fundamental to the way capitalism works. So every commercial I've ever made is required a release form, and I have several right here in writing, to not get sued by the person who is photographer, from being in the commercial. The Kentucky General Assembly require here in this little comment here. Here we go. The Kentucky General Assembly recognizes a person's has property rights in their name and likeness, which is entitled to protection from commercial exploitation. Also, is this video slanderous or libel? I mean, if you look at the comments of hundreds of people protesting on the business commercial page, on Brewed's page, saying negative and hateful things, I feel like that takes away these private individuals' rights and exploitation. Anyway, public business or commercial businesses publicly shaming private citizens. I strongly support freedom of speech, but I believe that profiting and exploiting a person's property, which is their face, their image, their likeness, is illegal, and the video should be taken down. I chose to blur these images because I believe that it is a rights issue. It's a violation of the people in this video to use this video commercially. And so I decided to blur out the images.